Look, I've been patient. I've waited an entire week for what we all know is bait. I can't even go on my Twitter feed without getting spoiled. And you know what? I'm okay with that. All I need is for Ryuji to give me what I want. And look, I'm not asking for much here. All I want is the sauce.
The sauce?
The sauce?
The sauce.
彼女に失礼だろう。何？
Yeah, that'll do it. I like how right at the start of this chapter, Ryuji's just immediately like, nope, here you go. You guys are waiting for the Umi mystery. You want that, get out of the way? Okay, here you go. I'm just gonna get that out of the way right now. Don't worry about it. I'm not gonna make you wait the entire chapter to figure out what's going on. I also like how the way he drew Chizuru, the way he's drew her this chapter is really interesting. It's very different. Like, her hair has more of that raven quality that Kazuya describes in like chapter 50, I believe, like around there. It's like darker, the frame of her glasses seems thicker. Everything about her seems to have more of a presence, and I think there's a reason for that. I also like how Chizuru comes to Kazuya's house formally and in person, and I find that really interesting because this is a date. She knows exactly what she's doing, and she does it in person formally because that's how you ask a person out. And the way she dresses tells a lot too. You'll notice Chizuru isn't wearing her glasses when she's visiting Kazuya. What she's doing right now is she's at a nice border between looking good but staying somewhat casual to not rush things too much. Another interesting note to point out is how the way Chizuru tells it to Kazuya is she said he invited you as a producer, but the way she's conversing with him is rather friendly and calm. So it's like this weird kind of middle ground where you're like, okay, she's clearly being more friendly than usual, and she's kind of blushing, tiptoeing around the line to just not outright tell him, but she's making a move. Also, let's not forget the beginning of the chapter where she turns to look at Kazuya's balcony, then drops a frustrated blush. That is peak Chizuru right there. Give me more of that. Like, he nailed the beauty mark under the eye feeling without actually having it there. That's how good Ryuji is at art, like holy shit. And yeah, I think that's the whole thing with Negami's story, is like, a meetup is going to happen at some point, as she points out. It's like, you don't bring her often, I don't see her often, and you're just crisis managing right now. But I think as soon as things calm down with Kazuya, as soon as maybe they start dating, or something starts going well for him, she's gonna be like, bring her over. And I think that's what that conversation was kind of setting up. It's like, it's gonna eventually transition to them needing to go over, mommy's gonna do something, and henceforth that's how that plot's gonna play out. So there was, again, lots and lots of setup in this chapter. Oh wow, I didn't realize, but I love Kazuya's frog shirt. Look at this dumb frog shirt. It's so great. I love it. There's also a lot of interesting lines going on, like the opening line to this chapter where it's like, the dates with you lift the stains from my soul, I can't live without you anymore. Like, that line, not only is it pretty interesting, but the imagery, the use of imagery is pretty interesting too. Like, is Ryuji hinting at, like, you know, the deed? Like, is he hinting at that? Like, sure, it might not happen right away, but I don't know, there's a lot of like interesting clues, like for example, the talk that Kazuya has with his friends in the earlier chapter, how this whole arc starts before Kazuya goes on the date with Ruka, and their whole relationship topic. There's a lot of like subtle clues like all throughout the chapters on what Ryuji's thinking of doing, so I'm really curious if he's just gonna go straight with the deed or not, because the last chapter, him and his friends were talking about it for a good while, and even Ryuji is like, hey, I might just do it, because that's always been a theme in Rent a Girlfriend, and it's always been a thing for Kazuya, so you never know, might happen. Even Yomori said it in earlier chapters where it's like, yo, girls get frisky too, don't rule it out. And then right after we see Chizuru can't sleep because there's yeah, dude, Oh man, Frigi gets us with this to be hilarious. He's gonna like Chad the shit out of us. It'd be fucking hilarious. When Chizuru's talking to him, it even sounds like someone who's explaining a date to someone. And what's interesting too is there's a lot of panels where it zooms out on Chizuru as she's explaining, and she looks down and she blushes, and then it does the little droplet things, and I'm like, yo, okay, she's actually like kind of flustered. She wants to get this right. And you see this later on in the chapter after she gives him the QR code and she gives him all the information. It skips 2 weeks ahead, and we see Kazuya standing at the place at the meetup spot, and he said he scoured it and he was trying to make sure he was getting it right too. And then he says how the same night she sent him the information, and you can tell like she's talking like kind of informally too, like she's saying, alrighty, see ya later, see ya, blah blah blah. I guess Kazuya just didn't realize it. Since it doesn't feel like a date to him, since he's being invited to a party with regards to the premiere, so he's probably like not thinking about it as much, but it's a date. It's a date. The conversation that Kazuya has with Negami is pretty interesting because in a way it almost sounds like he would have lit the fire for her to like talk to Mami about this stuff. I feel like Kazuya told her just enough where it's like she probably won't ask more. I feel like Mami's gonna somehow force it anyway, but the way she takes it is she seems like really understanding of the situation. Like she even explains risk management, like I get what's going on, it's kind of rough on your end, like it's okay, I get it, I'm on your side, don't think ill of your grandma. She even says like I've been pretty prudent about this, and that's actually one of the things I like always try to mention about Negami. The way she's treated Chizuru has been very like she takes it easy with her. She's very calm, even though she doesn't get to interact with her. She tries to support her in any way she can. And I think the line that Negami says, "Time heals all wounds. Don't rush her, just be there for her," is probably going to be an important line to recall for events to come. As if you know anything about Kazuya, he works his magic best when he's doing it for Chizuru rather than himself. Grandma's giving some good advice to Kazuya today. Grandma's looking out, baby! Also, a slightly strange analysis, but I find the page that comes right after that one about Mami pretty interesting. I think many of these lines, especially how Mami is treating him warmly despite his lies, is kind of like a double meaning kind of thing, where it's giving us clues as the viewers that Mami might possibly have interest in Kazuya's life romantically, not just for whatever motivation she currently has going on. Despite Kazuya knowing kind of like how messed up Mami is, it's interesting to notice how he says, I guess there's nothing to worry about. And what that points out to us as an audience is how Kazuya has so little self-respect for himself, to a degree. Like, it is starting to change, of course, but he has so little self-respect for himself that even when Mami shit talks him, he thinks he deserved it. So he doesn't think that that was a shitty moment from her. He doesn't realize that she's being really shitty, even though when he was thinking about it in the moment, it was creeping him out. It was really creeping him out. And I think that's part of Mami's plan. Her not revealing something and Kazuya eventually finding out and Kibe finding out, I believe was part of Mami's plan. It's essentially meant to lure Kazuya into a false sense of security where he thinks nothing's gonna happen because Negami corroborated it, Kibe corroborated it, and Mami said the same thing. So all their alibis make sense. All their alibis fit together. So nobody is lying to Kazuya. Henceforth, he thinks he's safe. He thinks there's nothing to worry about. When in reality, we as the audience know. And this happens quite a lot in the series where you think you know what other characters are thinking, or you think Kazuya should know what these characters are thinking, but he doesn't. It's a very common trait with Chizuru where we constantly see things that Kazuya does not. As for Umi, when I was reading the chapter, like my initial thoughts were literally like, is this dude a homie? Because it just sounds like he's looking out. Like the way he's talking to Chizuru, it doesn't sound like he's trying to get with her, like from the text message. It doesn't sound like he's trying to get with her, rather he's trying to basically feel Kazuya out, and the way he's talking to her sounds like, you know, that close friend who gets like a little close and personal, but doesn't really like push any further. Because Umi during the day, like, okay, everyone likes to shit on Umi-kun because he's the hot guy and everyone's afraid of him. Even Kazuya admits it, like he was afraid of him because of what was going on. And the way he approached the day thing with Chizuru was a little sketchy and kind of shitty. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like when you're reading the chapter, he comes off as really sketchy. And he's kind of felt like he's pulling out all the stops. And interestingly enough, Kazuya mentions in his chapter too. Since that seems to be kind of his thing, if you've noticed from past chapters. This man has connections. He's literally that one dude that you know who just has way too much connections. He's too good at what he does. I get why Kazuya's feeling like this, because it's pretty obvious that it's like, what does Umi want with me? Like, what? And I love how he still views Umi as a mega Chad. Like, I love how he phrases that. Umi's a mega Chad. I'm like, bruh, bruh, you'll get there soon, I promise. You're already there. You literally have the mega girl. You just need to be the mega Chad yourself. I think that Umi isn't actually that shitty of a person. Like, he could be salty. I think he'll be a little salty. I will say that. But the way he talks about it and the way he acted during the event when Chizuru turned him down wasn't that shitty. The way he went about trying to ask Chizuru out was shitty. What he did after was not. He still gave them the retweet. He still wanted to keep up some level of friendship with her. And sure, it could be for selfish reasons, but he respected Chizuru's choice. And I'm pretty sure he's kind of aware of her tendency to like not be honest with herself, especially when she says, I'm not sure, even though she clearly turned him down. Cause she was trying to turn him down without like outright saying it to Umi, and then Umi has to straight up confront her about it. Umi does what we want Kazuya to do. We want Kazuya to just outright confront Chizuru about her feelings. But yeah, I don't think Umi has any big ulterior motives. I think Umi is just scouting Kazuya out. He's just like checking him out. He's like, where are the guns?
Guns. Lots of guns.
Show me your moves, Kazuya. Show me what you got, you little shit. You literally took best girl from me. I am actually upset. I want to know what you got that I don't. So he's kind of like doing like a bunch of different things. And basically it's kind of like, he's like the homie. He's the guy who's watching out. He's the support system. He's the Yumori to Chizuru. Umi's the Yumori to Chizuru. That's how I'm gonna put it. Because Umi has never interacted with Kazuya. Not once. So we don't know how Umi feels about this. And again, Umi's like low-key a throwaway character.
Yikes.
Like, you think Sumi didn't get enough screen time? Umi literally was there for like 4 chapters at best. 4, maybe 5. You know, actually today actually has he got a mini cameo. He got a little cute chibi version of him in there. So you know what? I'll count this as a chapter 2. So let's say he has like 6 or 5 chapters in total. So Umi doesn't have much screen time, as you can tell. So he's not exactly an important character, but he will be another fuel to the fire to them to transition into dating. This will also probably be when Kazuya finds out about what transpired between Chizuru and Umi, since he clearly states he never knew about that at the moment, but he also indicates through his words that at some point he does find out. So this will probably be when Kazuya finds out. Umi will most likely confront him and talk to him, and feel like it'll be a good confidence booster for Kazuya if he finds out. Since Kazuya's biggest issue that is yet to be resolved, that is constantly hinted at, that is constantly brought up over and over and over again, is Kazuya's self-esteem issues, his low self-worth, and how poorly he views himself, how he believes he's not worthy to be within Chizuru's range with Chizuru, and that is, I believe, going to be very relevant within this arc. I believe this will be extremely relevant in this arc. I think Umi is kind of like the distraction almost from Mami. This is the thing that's going to get your attention while Mami kind of keeps scheming in the background. More shit's going to keep happening with Mami. So I think as soon as this arc ends, we're going to get some sort of happy-ish ending, or some sort of something to like fuel what's going to happen between Kazuya and Chizuru. From there, we'll get like a little flash of Mami interacting with Negumi, and we'll get like little hints of what she's actually planning or something, and we'll see where it goes from there. I also like to point out how the title of the chapter is called The Tiger's Den. It's Kazuya entering Chizuru's world, Kazuya essentially figuring out this part of her life, the part of her life that's, you know, crazy and wild that he thinks he can never possibly be in. And you get a glimpse of that in this chapter, where Kazuya is like seeing these crazy people, actors, and like the way they're interacting and shit, and how he's like, I can't even like keep up with these dudes. I don't even know what they're saying. They're like throwing out buzzwords and shit. And that's interesting kind of setup to show you, hey, look at how Kazuya's about to enter like a crazy den of monsters that he's just not ready to be part of yet. Like he's like the starting player since we had Negumi playing the PlayStation 4. Speaking of which, Negumi's a gamer girl. Hell yeah. And she's a PS4 person, which is oddly fitting because Xbox is not a thing in Japan. But this is a this is a Rent-A-Girlfriend review, so I'm gonna come back to that now. Kazuya is like the beginner character, essentially. He's starting just now to kind of figure out how the movie industry works, and as we've seen many times, and if you know anything about the movie industry, It's scary shit, bro. Even Sayuri points out to Chizuru's grandpa how it's not a great place to be. And so we'll finally see how Chizuru's able to handle this because she's an actor, but we'll also see how Kazuya will be able to cope with being in a situation where Chizuru is usually at. She's usually in a situation like this where she has to act and pretend. I can see a lot of these interactions going actually pretty well for Kazuya because, as usual, like, Kazuya's probably gonna panic and things might get a little weird for him. I can see people like coming up and trying to ask him and be like, who are you? Why are you with Chizuru? Yada yada yada. And then Kazuya maybe panics at first, but then he explains it. He tries to look good for Chizuru so he can put up an act essentially, and then eventually he ends up making friends. Or it goes a little bit differently. Maybe she separates from him and he starts getting a little depressed like he did before, but eventually she comes back and she talks to him and everything kind of works out. Because at the end of the day, Kazuya is a very strong person. Like, he's not a weak person. And I think that's what the title of the next chapter possibly implies, is the feast for the strongest. And the only person who thinks he's weak is honestly either himself or his family, who just makes jokes about him because they kind of remember the kid who doesn't really do anything with his life. Basically, it's mostly like his closer friends, but even then they cheer him on. Like, even his family, despite like kind of making jokes about him and shit, they still cheer him on. They're like, you can do this. Like, they believe in him. And Kazuya has done a lot. Like, he made a movie pretty much all on his own. He produced it all on his own, and that probably will be a huge talking point. Like, just because Kazuya doesn't know these buzzwords like everybody describes doesn't mean he can't interact with these people, doesn't mean these things. If anything, he probably understands the movie business way more than you would expect because he was part of the movie creating process. He probably gets it a lot more than you would think, and he understands the passion behind the acting. So he can probably describe these things really well, because we've seen on multiple occasions where Kazuya actually talks about films and he can immediately tell like who stands out, who's doing their job really well, who's doing this, who's doing that. And you see this when he's talking to Chizuru, even though he says, I'm not a movie buff. There's a lot of really good moments where Kazuya actually clearly understands movies. He just doesn't know like the insider words, like the things like people know. Like when we're in an anime community, like you don't know what an isekai is, you just think, oh, someone got reincarnated, something like that. So he just doesn't know the words, and he'll probably figure it out, and he'll probably end up making a lot of friends. And of course, fitting in with the strong, because this is basically probably a good motivation moment for Kazuya as a character to truly understand his own self-worth. Oh yeah, and you know what? I'm gonna say it. Kazuya is attractive. He's pretty freaking attractive. He's literally the only one who doesn't think he's attractive. He has like 4 different like SS tier girlfriends around him. He's not dating them anyway. Shut up. He has 4 SS girls around him, and he still thinks he's not good enough. Like, hot damn. Like, Ruka, like, despite being crazy, is still SSS. Sumi, SSS. I forgot Yamori. Yamori's also SSS. He has all these girls around him, and he still thinks he's not attractive. And Ryuji is actually going out of his way with the art panels these days to actually show how attractive Kazuya is as a character, especially when he's about to confess. Like, are you kidding? The way he drew him, the paneling, the hair, the eyes. Yo, that was quality art of Kazuya. I need that type of shit on my covers. What are you doing, Ryuji? Give me Kazuya covers. What are you doing, dude? This man's attractive. He's going to single-handedly get you the female audience that you've been waiting for, Ryuji. What are you doing? This man is hella attractive. Like, I get it. Umi's a mega Chad. Umi's a mega stud. He's attractive as fuck. But Kazuya, man? Dude, what are you waiting for? Put them on your covers. One of the things I absolutely adore about Ryuji's art, and I like to say this every time I'm reading, I love how Ryuji's art feels very cinematic, very like you're looking at a sculpture, you're looking at a scene from your 5-star Hollywood movie or whatever. The paneling, the position, the presentation. Not only do you feel like you're watching an anime through manga panels, but when big scenes happen, they're paneled to you perfectly. They're shown to you in a line. It's almost designed like you're supposed to follow it with your eyes. It's kind of what Dragon Ball used to do, where if you read the original Dragon Ball Z, when fights were happening, you can follow the motions of what's happening on screen through like the way characters transition, through the way like characters throw a punch or what they're trying to do, and you immediately understand and you can visualize it, and it makes it easier to animate. And I think the way Ryuji draws and panels his manga does that perfectly. I don't want to delve too much into that, but it's just something I really wanted to appreciate while talking about it this chapter, because come on, he nailed it perfectly with Chizuru in this. Like that scene where Chizuru walks in, this slow panning to shows you her legs, her hair, the dress, and then her hands, and then eventually it shows you the full scene, how everyone's just mesmerized, and it literally takes your breath away. And then he even says it, he literally puts into words what you were thinking, and I'm like, what a legend. He knows exactly what he did. And when an author can present something and know exactly what he did to the audience, that's how you know this man got his craft down. And his art consistently gets better. Like Chizuru actually looks better. How do you just improve a character design? How do you just make it better? I guess like that. Okay, one last thing I want to point out here. I like how every time Kazuya and Chizuru meet up, this kind of thing happens. Whether it's on rental dates or meeting to talk to a movie director, she always only sees him. To Chizuru, nobody else is relevant in the shot except for Kazuya, despite other characters being present. I also like how Kazuya follows along like someone who just got shot by Cupid's arrow, mesmerized and immersed in Chizuru's elegant yet beautiful demeanor, completely tuning out all outside interference that bothered him before. Granted, if I was in his position, I would too. So yeah, that's all for today. Umi-kun might not be a homie, Umi-kun might be a total homie. Who knows? You could totally just be the big brother. Yeah, there we go. Remember, if you enjoyed this content, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and hit the bell icon if you want to keep up with the uploads, you know, the classic shebang bang. So thank you for watching. I have been Fate, and remember, let's mosey.